I talked with a lot of futurists, and AI keeps coming up, and I'm assuming you've spent a lot of time thinking about AI. But I'm curious to know, how should leaders be thinking about strategy in this fast changing AI world?
I believe AI is the biggest shift in our culture since electricity. So if you think about businesses that were around before electricity, some of them said, we're going to embrace electricity, and some of them said no. The ones who said no were clearly in a different group than the ones who said yes. And there's an entire world got built beyond that. I think the same thing is happening with AI. So if you embrace AI and say, this is a great way to cost reduce, this is a great way for me, this is a great way for me to, for example, never have to talk to a customer again, just drive them through an AI machine and reduce the cost of this and reduce to this, you're now racing to the bottom. And the problem with the race to the bottom is you might win. The alternative is to say, I now have an infinite number of unpaid employees who will do tasks for me that I can define. How do I put those to use to bring humanity back into what I'm doing as a advantage? So the same way when electricity came along, you got machines to do what people used to do, but you ended up hiring more people with the money you made from the machines. That is what a lot of leaders are missing. You have to figure out how you're going to put more humanity into what you do, not less.
Yeah, that's the conversation that I had with Mike Bechtel. I'm not sure if you know who he is. He's a futurist at Deloitte. And he said there's two ways that companies are looking at AI. He said there's the one who say, oh, we've got AI, we can eliminate this job. And there are those who say, oh, we've got AI, we can amplify what this person can do or these people can do. And those are different strategies. And I guess my question is, long-term strategy is often equated to long-term thinking, but there are so many changes, so many disruptions that are happening as a result of AI. And so how do we stay on course or navigate when we need to as a result of AI disruption?
Roger Martin has pointed out that companies really like strategic planning, but it has nothing to do with strategy. Strategic planning is coming up with a list of things managers can do. And if they do them, you succeed. Well, yeah, managers love that, but that's not strategic planning. Strategy is about finding the currents, finding where systems are driving us. So for more than 100 years, if you had the strategy of we're going to make things more convenient for busy upper income people, you wouldn't need to change your strategy. That, Minneapolis, where you are, is based on General Foods and General Mills and whichever other generals are there, figuring out how to, make a cake mix instead of having a cake. Once you have a strategy like that, the tactics keep presenting themselves. Go-gurt, right? Go-gurt is a tactic, which is for people who don't have enough time to get a spoon, here's a way to eat yogurt. Well, AI shows up, and on one hand, it gives you new tactics for the old strategies to be able to say, what we always believed as a company is X, AI is one of those tactics. But it's also a change agent. Entire systems are going to be undone. So let's think about the educational industrial complex. We spend $1 trillion educating people. I have no doubt that AI can do it more effectively and significantly cheaper. It's going to change entire industries from the top down, right? And from the bottom up and sideways. So if we start with that, now what are you going to build? And the best moment to step out in front is when a change agent is hitting its stride and most people deny it's important. So right here, right now, AI is just this tiny little speck compared to what it's going to be in 5 years. But it's not that hard to imagine how it's going to turn an industry upside down.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I've had other people on the show talking about AI and comparing it with electricity. And I like to think back to when people first experienced electricity, so 100, 150 years ago, and how magical it was. And we are just going to, that magic is going to disappear. So my children are 6 and 8. They're very young. And they're just going to accept AI for it's a tool. Where you and I see this magic. And I can't believe what ChatGPT is able to do just from a very quick summary perspective. And that's just scratching the surface in terms of what it will be. And so I think about, the 1880s or, 1900 when electricity was just starting to be used. People couldn't have imagined how fundamentally, like, we're going to charge our cars. We're going to be able to drive hundreds of miles. We'll actually be able to drive across the country with these charged cars. They couldn't have imagined that. And so I'm just wondering where, what are some of the ways that we're going to be able to harness this while being able to preserve what it means to be human? And I know that's a big topic, and it's off the topic of your book, but you've thought about
it's all involved in this change of system. So Jeff Bezos told me about washing machines. Now, the washing machine transforms the lives, particularly of women, because it's hours and hours a day that don't have to be spent. When electricity first arrived in homes, there were no electrical outlets. There were just light bulbs. So if you wanted to use the washing machine, you unscrewed a light bulb and you screwed in this thing that fit into the light bulb that powered it. But washing machines are hard to balance. And so it would move around the room. And not a few, dozens, maybe hundreds of people were killed because it would move around the room and the wire would go around someone's neck. And right, like, this is the level of transition that we're talking about when electricity shows up. You mentioned electric cars. I don't think electric cars from an electrical point of view are a big deal. You know what's a big deal? The big deal, if you've ever been in a village that has no electricity, to see what happens at 6 o'clock at night. That what electricity did and now the average person in the United States needs to work for less than 10 seconds to earn a day's worth of electricity for light. What it does is it creates 5 hours a day of awake time for every single person. That is so spectacular a systems shift that people didn't realize what it meant when it happened, right? And so when we think about AI, its ability to do what looks like the work people like you and I do is a fun side effect. But what it's actually going to do that's going to change things is it's going to talk to other AIs, talk to us, predict, and execute more and more and more and more and more. So humans are going to have to figure out something to do to create value. And it's not going to be what we expect. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's not going to be what we expect.
Well, I'll even add to that. And I was involved in the addiction field for a while. I was on the board of a treatment facility out in Estes Park, Colorado. And we've recently merged, so I'm off the board now as of this summer. And one of the very, very surprising things is that research has found that people are more open to being candid to an AI bot than they are to a physician. And it doesn't have anything to do with the physician's ability to connect. It's the physician's time. And so I'm thinking about, from an intake perspective, how AI can be used to maybe eliminate 2 hours of possible interviewing of somebody coming into a facility and really making those physicians far more efficient and effective in doing their job. So it's not 7 minutes of you telling me what's going on. We can have 2 hours of data that's summarized for us, and then enable us in a much more
right. And let's go even further and realize that AI has infinite patience. So it should be collecting my health stuff 24 hours a day. And so a day before the doctor's appointment, it comes to me and says, I've noticed in the last month these things. Is there anything here that you don't want to talk about? Because now it's taken a month's worth of data and turned it into 6 paragraphs. I mean, if you think about cognitive behavioral therapy, it doesn't make sense to go to a therapist for an hour a week. It makes sense to go to a therapist a minute at a time. And this is all doable as we go forward.